Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, good evening. This is the Two Tokens podcast, and today we are here with Aljosja Beije from Blocklab and Victor van der Hulst from, Victor, why don't we start with you? From what?
From what? Very good question. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Victor van der Hulst. I'm currently working at Windesheim, University of Applied Sciences, as the project manager of program manager for Spark Living Lab, a research project that explores the application of blockchain as a data sharing infrastructure in the logistics domain.
Oh, good. Well, welcome to have you. We haven't had you here, but we've known one another for a long time. We just established that. And today's podcast will be all about your working group and about your project, Aljosja. It's been 2 years since we were here on electronic bill of lading. And so where do we stand today? Maybe a short introduction recap.
Perhaps I should introduce myself first a little bit for those who are not familiar with me. Aljosja Beije, I'm director of Blocklab. We build blockchain solutions for logistics and energy. We are a 100% subsidiary of the Port of Rotterdam. And next to that, I'm also a visiting lecturer at the University of Southern California and co-author on a book on blockchain and supply chain management. Where do we stand since the last 2 years working on EBL? I think there's been a lot of progress, both on the technical side, and I'll address that later, but also on the legal side of things, because when we started that project, that was one of the core challenges that we faced, is the fact that digital transfer of ownership of a bill of lading was not allowed, or is currently still not allowed, according to the civil code in the Netherlands, and in a lot of other countries, for that matter, also in the UK, for example. To start with that, we collaborated with the Dutch Blockchain Coalition in order to get the necessary changes and amendments in the Dutch Civil Code.
Because the Dutch Civil Code, like many other civil codes, prescribes that a bill of lading needs to be physical.
It needs to be physical, and you need a wet signature. So it's really like people, in order to assess whether the bill of lading is a real one, people start feeling that document and they feel the indent of the pen that did the autograph, etc. So not what you would expect in 2022, but apparently still quite common. That started with a lobby towards Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Justice, and we got a really positive feedback there. It was like, we need to do this. Great that you're doing this pilot with 2 tokens, and also we did actually earlier work also in the Spark project. So great that you're doing this pilot. You show that it can work digitally. Also, thanks to the partners that you work with, Singapore, port authorities in Singapore, the Ministry of Information and Communication in Singapore, that really brought some meat to the story. Let's together work on a proposal to change the civil code. We've finished the internet consultation, so that's basically...
So is the Netherlands the only country in the world where the civil code is being changed?
No, in the UK, last week they had really in Parliament already a discussion on how the British law on transfer of ownership can be, for the bill of lading, can be changed. It's a little bit wider. It's also in general for digitization of trade documents, of which one bill of lading is one of them. So it's in the UK it's wider, but they see the bill of lading really as a trade document. And in the UK it's now in Parliament already, and difficult to really say when it's going to be ready. but it looks like autumn next year also in the UK, for example, that law's passed. Singapore already passed that law.
Well, that's a different government.
Different government, and they have been spearheading this project since 2019. So they also started way earlier. The other country is United Arab Emirates, Singapore, and I've.
So wasn't our mayor there in August?
Yeah, correct. So on top of the work we have been doing on TradeTrust, there's now a bigger project between the Port of Rotterdam and Port of Singapore. It's really with between the port authorities, and also a group of shipping lines like Maersk, MSC, but also Shell, for example. That is really setting up a consortium and to work on creating a green and digital corridor between Singapore and the Netherlands. So that means not only digitization of trade documents, but also making sure that there's an infrastructure that can support alternative biofuels for ships. So it's a very that is a really huge project, of which digitization is one of the areas. And you're right, Mayor Abu Taleb was in Singapore in August for that. And TradeTrust is one of those things that we focus on in the digital side of things.
Yeah. So with 2tokens, we've been working on this since 2018, 2019. You and I, we started this, among others, and some other people that are not at this table.
Yeah.
But we really focus now in 2022, 23 on adoption and how we have to start using this.
Yeah.
Could you say that electronic bills of lading, are starting to be used, tokenized, the way we envisioned that 2 years ago?
Yeah, I would say so. If I look at the developments that we are doing together with our partners in Singapore, you see that the development of TradeTrust as a really enterprise-ready solution for transfer of ownership, that's happening, and I think the realistic time frame is really that by the time the first countries have adopted the changes in the civil code. So if you look at the UK, for example, that would be somewhere. So if you look at where we currently are in the UK or in the Netherlands, realistically summer, no, let's call it autumn, end of next year, then between a couple of very important trade lanes, the use of digital documents will be possible and can be made for real. So we are already making all the technological preparations in order to be able to handle that. On our side, we use our own platform Naviporta for that, but which is developed for the Port of Rotterdam, that we're basically getting ready to make sure that when the law changes, you can just you can switch and we can start implementing really digital transfer of ownership as well.
So Victor, you guys are both in maritime and supply chain finance. That's one sector that we work on with 2tokens, one of the first 3 use cases. How does Windesheim and Spark Living Lab fit in this picture? What have you been working on?
That's a very good question, and basically, our focus was on exploring the application of these kind of technologies in the logistics industry. So what we did basically was together with a lot of companies that were interested to see what is technology could bring to their chains or their challenges, to identify these challenges and to explore and analyze possible solutions based on these emerging technologies, blockchain in particular. So one of the use cases already mentioned was TradeTrust. So with our project, we contributed to that particular one, did some development via Blocklab, which ended in the pilots already mentioned. But of course, we also explored other possible opportunities for blockchain related to certification in agriculture or agri-food, together with a very large potato products manufacturer in the Netherlands. Another one was more on digital twinning. So especially in agri-food, these supply chains are very complex, long. A lot of companies are involved, and farmers, of course. So what we saw there, in combination with a company that is focused on supply chain finance, deep tier finance, is that it's very hard to finance the players deep in the chain, especially the farmers. So what if we set up a solution in which we can create digital twins of all these products, of all the agri-food products, including all the entire document trail? Would that lower the risks for the financier, and then also lower the financial aspects of financing these deals? So that's also one of the solutions we worked on, also together with Blocklab, one of the consortium partners here. And that's called the Trade Coin case. It's an internal name, but let's call it that way right now.
And so you actually created a token that is a utility token or security token. Is it tradable, or is it, what does the token do?
Now that's a very good question, and also something still to explore further. Right now, the token is basically a digital twin of that particular good, again including all the documentation. The thing is, these goods, they transform along the way. So we start with a coffee bean, and it ends with actual coffee, and a lot has happened in between. So it's not only a product NFT or a product token, but it's also about composition. So a lot of products are composed into a new product or split it or whatsoever, and we try to store all these activities, all these events on the blockchain, including the documents, etc. And the next question, of course, is what kind of token will it be, and also from a legal perspective. That's something still to discuss.
It could be very interesting use case for 23, I think, to look at the token aspect.
Absolutely.
Because we need to take a look at the legal aspect, right? So we have several lawyers that would have an opinion here. But the question is, of course, as soon as this token can be used to speculate, whether it's, do you think it could be something to speculate with?
That's not a.
Could it go up and down in value?
No, definitely not. Yeah. At this point, it really acts as a digital twin, and we use a token as a way to be able to capture all the evidence in a single object, and that happens to be a token. And of course, the token follows the physical flow, so the token does get transferred from one person to the other, or from one entity to the other. But for example, ownership is not is linked to, for example, a digital bill of lading. So that is where also the projects come together.
Because the EBL token, that was an ERC 721 token.
Exactly.
It was just used to transfer a document.
Exactly, and there's basically we see as within Naviporta we see TradeCoin as another type of notary that we implement on top of. It's just a set of smart contracts that you use if you want to create a digital twin of the products that you want to capture throughout your supply chain. And the EBL smart contracts are really set up for digital transfer of ownership linked to the bill of lading. So one of the things that we envision is really that you have a bill of lading token, or the digital twin token references the EBL token as a way to guarantee ownership, for example. So that's how these projects.
It's more like
it's
like a track and trace function.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So it's. Yeah.
And that's something we discussed with one of the other partners, Digital Asset, and they made it clear, tokens are so much more than just representing ownership, right?
Yeah,
exactly. But most people out there think that tokens represent ownership only, but that's not the case, of course.
Yeah, and this
very limited
actually,
view.
And with TradeCoin, we really don't look at ownership from the token is not the digital twin is not the token that decides on ownership.
Right.
It may reference to a document or a other token that does provide that ownership. So it's so we actually don't use it for ownership, which is kind of interesting.
So with two tokens phase 2, Aljosja, of course, we are working on taking certain aspects, certain use cases to a higher technical TRL level. Naviporta is one of those. Another one is Next Gen Capital. We also have the energy token use case, and they're all going towards adoption and being put out there in the market. What can you tell us about Naviporta, and what can you not tell us about Naviporta?
Well, I can tell you Naviporta is live. We use it in a case for fully digital customs clearance towards the UK, where we use the Naviporta infrastructure, blockchain as an infrastructure, as our basic layer. And on top of that, we built an application that takes care of all the logic and business rules in order to do fully digital customs clearance into the UK post-Brexit. We got paying clients on that one. We're live. Users are onboarded.
And for the end user, what are the gains? What are the advantages?
Very simple. On average, and in pilots, we found that we can do it for 30 to 40% less cost. That's the only thing. They don't, and it sometimes hurts a little bit my technical heart, but they don't really care what kind of blockchain is under it, or whether it's a blue one or a green one. When you tell them this is what it does and it can save you so much cost, they're like, okay, interested. We want to talk. And that's in the end the reason why they use it, and that we can provide those lower costs by providing certain assurances that are provided by blockchain. They don't really care.
But that's a very strong business case, right?
Yeah, no, it's basically you need one slide to sell it.
But isn't that what it comes down to in the end? All the religious discussions about decentralized DLT are in the end determined by the business case.
Yeah, yes. Although you need to, you really need to look very clearly. Okay, what do we use blockchain for? Mm-hmm. Blockchain is a decentralized technology. And to implement it in a highly centralized setting doesn't make a lot of sense. So what do we use blockchain for? In the case with KeyConnect, which is the solution that we built for the customs clearance, is to create a single source or common frame of reference over all kinds of siloed systems. You got the buyer's ERP system, you got the seller's ERP system, you got custom systems on both sides of
yeah, but I understand, I understand, why we use blockchain as a new way of building trust. But if you have 5-6 banks who already know one another, they could build their own trust, and they don't need a public blockchain to do that, right? If it helps for adoption, I'm all for it. But let's not have that religious discussion.
No. But, I mean, the common frame of reference is just to make sure that you can always assess whether documents have been tampered with. Is that document really provided by the source, or do I get that document now from somebody else who's actually not the source of that data? And it's the reason why we use blockchain in this case. We don't use blockchain for a lot of other things. No. I think one of the we started in 2017 in Blocklab, but we never took a really religious approach towards blockchain. Some people might say we are a sellout. I don't care, but we have been really very practical. Okay. What can you do with this technology that you cannot do with any
But isn't that
technology?
also your function as being, the lab for the Port of Rotterdam to build stuff, right?
Exactly, and solve real world challenges.
But I think also you already mentioned it a couple of times, the common frame of reference. I think that's a very strong, maybe key point for using blockchain, and especially in these supply chain settings. And the question basically is, do you need such a common frame of reference, and does it bring any value? And I believe in many supply chain cases it will. Then there is an opportunity to use blockchain.
Yeah, but the bigger question, I think, Victor, is what does society as a whole, they are not interested in whether we use blockchain or crypto or tokenization. They're only interested in us solving a problem at the lowest cost and bringing efficiency, right? Yeah. So I think we've been in this industry for 10 years now. Blockchain, you a little longer maybe, but
almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years.
But I think now we're coming to a point that we just don't have to talk about the technology anymore, right? Let's just talk about the solution, because now we want to cater to a different audience. Our story needs to be to a different audience.
Yeah, and I think also if you look at the question is, when we started Blocklab, the question was, what can we do with blockchain? I think after 5 years we kind of know. And what is now really important, I think, is, okay, you got now blockchain, but you got also machine learning, you got AI, you got IoT devices, you got 5G. How do you let all these technologies come together and create real practical solutions that solve real world problems? I think there's every one of these emerging technologies has a role to play in solving these issues, and it's not let's put everything on the blockchain, or let's it's like, okay, where can we use it for, and how does it interact with other technologies?
And as we have found in the last 3 years that we've worked on 2 tokens, there's 3 types of people working on the use cases. On the one hand, the people like Aljosja, right? Really on the technology and very important. Equally important are the legal, regulatory, and lawyers. They are also there. They're having a field day. And the third are the financiers, the banks, the exchanges. So those 3 are all coming together. And I think that is what we need to. If you bring those 2, that is your new frame of reference. Yeah. Right, we're building new value systems.
Yeah. I think that's also what with TradeTwin. I mean, it's the marriage of the physical and the financial flows within the supply chain, and that is where the value is. Yeah. And that is something that currently doesn't exist. No. It's still totally separate systems. And I think also it's quite. If I look at what we do, for example, with TradeTrust, it's really about automating an existing document. But ideally, you would like to go one step beyond that, and that's just, why do we digitize a document that existed for 700 years? What is the core reason why we have that document, and how can we do that same thing without a document, but with in another means. The downside of that approach is that it's going to take an enormous amount of time, because then you need to make enormous changes to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world doesn't move as fast as you want them to do. But I think there is also still tremendous opportunity to rethink how we run the information flows within a supply chain, and in particular in the physical and the financial flows.
I think it's on us to educate the next generation. You educate.
Yeah.
At the University of Southern California.
Yeah.
You work with Windesheim University. Right? We work with Erasmus University. We need to educate people that value systems are going to be different, which also bring new opportunities and new ways of doing business, and some of which we don't even see yet today. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's the real benefit of everything that we've been doing. Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you for being here. What can we expect in 2023?
The first legally binding digital transfer of ownership of a container.
Well, then we should really celebrate.
Yeah, that's I'm really looking forward to that moment. I think it will be a milestone in the world of logistics, I'm very excited about it. So it's a lot of hard work. I mean, thank you for being the one spreading the gospel and making sure that tokenization is really a topic that deserves its own organization
well, especially in Europe, we're not the only ones doing it here, right? If you look what in the crypto asset conference with Philip Sandner, what we're doing in Paris and in London.
Yeah.
So, and I think as a European organization, we have to be more one voice. Especially because a lot of new legislation and laws need to be made, and people don't understand. Then we'll have bad laws.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really agree with you, Aljosja. It will be a big achievement if it will be legally binding to transfer the ownership digitally. And it would also unlock other new opportunities also related to that financial flow. So first things first, to put it that way.
Well, let's do a special session when that happens.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? And we'll invite it back here at my kitchen table. I hope to see you more often, Victor. We'll see each other next week.
Yes, looking forward to it.
And I thank you all for listening to this podcast in supply chain finance and maritime. And I'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was it for today's podcast. Thank you for listening in, and please subscribe so you don't miss out on our upcoming episodes. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find our contact details at www.twotokens.org.